I, 27 male, am currently sitting in a glass-walled office in downtown Chicago, watching my ex-girlfriend, 26 female, lose her absolute mind in the lobby while security prepares to escort her out. She looks haggard, her influencer aesthetic crumbling under the weight of a process server and a very public meltdown. It's a far cry from 3 months ago, when she looked me dead in the eye over a $200 dinner that I paid for and told me my monogamy was suffocating her growth. The conflict didn't start with a bang. It started with a check-in. We'd been together for 3 years. I supported her while she found her brand, which mostly involved me paying the rent for our 2-bedroom apartment and her spending 8 hours a day editing photos of her avocado toast. I thought we were building a life. I was wrong. I've been thinking, she said, swirling a glass of Pinot Noir. Our energy is becoming stagnant. I feel like I'm closing myself off to the universe's potential because I'm tied to one person. I want to start seeing other people, dating, exploring. You know, for my personal brand's authenticity. I put my fork down. You want an open relationship? I want a fluid relationship, she corrected, her tone dripping with that faux enlightened entitlement she'd picked up from TikTok. And honestly, if you can't handle me dating other people, you're not the one. A real man would want me to be empowered. The sheer audacity of her saying this while wearing a necklace I bought her for our anniversary was the final thread snapping. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I just nodded. You're right, I said, my voice eerily calm. I'm definitely not the one. We're done. She laughed. She actually laughed. Oh, stop being dramatic. You'll be calling me by tomorrow morning when you realize how lonely that apartment is. Keep the apartment for the month, I told her, standing up. I'll have my things out by Sunday. Don't contact me. I walked out, leaving her with the bill. But what she didn't know is that her best friend, 26F, had been texting me for weeks. Her best friend and I had always been platonic, but she'd been dropping hints, screenshots of my girlfriend's girls' night, outings that were actually dates with a local real estate developer. Her best friend hated the lying. She told me she couldn't stand watching a good guy get played by someone as narcissistic as her friend. The night I moved out, her best friend showed up to help me pack. She's already invited that developer over tonight, her best friend told me, handing me a roll of packing tape. She thinks she's won. She thinks you're the safety net she can jump back into when the fluidity gets boring. She's in for a very rude awakening, I muttered. Over the next 2 weeks, her best friend and I spent a lot of time together. Initially, it was just venting, but there was a genuine connection there that had been suppressed for years out of loyalty to my ex. We went to dinner, real dinner, where we actually talked about our goals and careers instead of lighting. I realized that while my ex was chasing clout, her best friend was a paralegal at a top-tier firm, sharp as a razor and twice as honest. We started dating officially 3 weeks later. And that's when the updates started getting interesting. My ex was under the impression that her best friend was still her loyal sidekick who would report back on my misery. Instead, her best friend was feeding me every single detail of my ex's crumbling finances. See, my ex had signed the lease on our apartment as a co-tenant, but I had been the one paying the occupancy fees and utilities. When I left, I didn't just move out. I went to the leasing office. Under Illinois law, specifically the Chicago Residential Landlord and Tenant Ordinance, RLTO, if a co-tenant vacates, the remaining tenant is responsible for the full rent. I had also informed the utility companies that the account holder, me, was moving. By the end of month 1, my ex was hit with a $2,800 rent bill and a shut-off notice for the electricity. She called me 30 times in one day. I blocked her. Then she called her best friend, sobbing about how cruel I was being. He's just hurt, her best friend told her over the phone while sitting right next to me on my new couch. Maybe you should try to talk to that developer guy for the money? He blocked me, my ex wailed. He said I was too much drama. I need to get my ex back. He's the only one who actually takes care of things. That was the plan. She thought she could cycle through people and return to me as the provider. But the entitlement didn't stop there. When she realized I wasn't coming back, she decided to try a dirty trick. She filed a small claims suit against me, claiming I had stolen furniture that we had jointly purchased and that I owed her for emotional distress caused by the sudden abandonment. She didn't know her best friend was literally helping me draft the counterclaim. The small claims court hearing was a masterclass in entitlement. My ex showed up in a designer outfit she definitely couldn't afford, clutching a victim narrative like it was a script for a viral reel. She told the judge that I had stripped the apartment of essential living necessities and that our verbal agreement was that I would pay the rent until she found her footing. I stood there with her best friend, who was acting as my witness. My ex hadn't seen her in person for weeks, and the look of confusion on her face when her loyal sidekick walked in behind me was priceless. "Your Honor," I said, handing over a folder of documented evidence. There was no verbal agreement to pay for an apartment I no longer occupied. Furthermore, every piece of furniture I removed was purchased solely by me, using my personal bank account, prior to our cohabitation. I have the receipts and the bank statements indexed by date. The judge flipped through my papers. "Mr. Narrator has provided clear proof of ownership. Ms. Ex-girlfriend, do you have any documentation proving these were joint purchases?" "Well, no, but it was a gift of lifestyle," she stammered. "He encouraged me to quit my job to focus on my brand. He has a legal obligation to support me because we lived as a domestic partnership." The judge didn't even look up. In the state of Illinois, living together does not create a common law marriage or a legal obligation for ongoing support without a written contract. Since you are both on the lease, you are both jointly and severally liable for the rent to the landlord, but the court cannot compel one party to pay for the other's housing post-breakup without a prior agreement. Case dismissed. My ex's face turned a shade of purple I didn't know existed. "You're a monster," she screamed at me in the hallway. "I'm being evicted. My credit is going to be ruined. How could you do this?" "I didn't do it," I said. "You did. You wanted to date other people, remember? Go ask them for the rent." She turned to her best friend, her eyes welling up with fake tears. "Can you believe him? Please tell me you have a spare room. I have nowhere to go." Her best friend took a deep breath. "Actually, I can't. I've moved." "Moved? Where?" "Into his new place," her best friend said, sliding her arm through mine. "We've been seeing each other for about 2 months now, and, honestly, he's the one for me. You were right to let him go." The silence in that courthouse hallway was deafening. My ex didn't move. She didn't blink. She just stared at us as the reality of her best friend, the person she'd been venting to, the person she'd been using as a sounding board for her fluid dating life, was now the person holding my hand. You traitor," she whispered. "You've been helping him? You've been telling him everything." "I've been telling him the truth," her best friend replied. "Like how you spent the rent money he gave you last month on a new camera and told him the landlord raised the price. Or how you were seeing that developer 6 months before you even asked for an open relationship." My ex lunged. It wasn't a graceful influencer move. It was a desperate, entitled scramble. Security intercepted her before she even got close. She was crying, screaming about betrayal and lawsuits, completely ignoring the fact that she was the one who had cheated and tried to financially drain me. But the satisfying revenge part? That was just the beginning. See, my ex had a business set up as an LLC for her social media work. To look professional for brand deals, she had used my business address and my personal credit card to pay for the annual filing fees and the registered agent services. She also hadn't filed her taxes for the brand income she'd made the previous year, assuming I'd just handle it like I handled everything else. When we broke up, I didn't just stop paying rent. I resigned as her unofficial business manager. I sent a formal notice to the Secretary of State that my address was no longer associated with her LLC. This triggered a notice of involuntary dissolution because she didn't have a valid registered office. She also lost her biggest brand deal, a skincare line that required a morality clause and proof of a valid business entity. When they went to verify her LLC, they found it was delinquent. And when they checked her engagement, they found a tip-off, anonymous, of course, that 60% of her followers were bot accounts purchased with my credit card, purchases I had flagged as unauthorized the moment I moved out. The office lobby in downtown Chicago is quiet, professional, and usually smells like expensive espresso. That changed the moment my ex-girlfriend vaulted through the revolving doors. She wasn't just there to talk. She was there for a scene. She was wearing a coat I'd bought her 2 winters ago, and her eyes were bloodshot. She looked like she hadn't slept since the courthouse hearing, probably because the developer she'd been seeing had dumped her the second he realized she was broke and facing a lawsuit from her landlord. "I know you're up there," she screamed at the receptionist, who was currently hovering her finger over the silent alarm. "I know he's in his office with that backstabbing snake." I stood behind the glass partition of my firm's suite on the 14th floor, watching the security feed on my monitor. Her best friend, my girlfriend, stood beside me, her hand on my shoulder. We weren't hiding. We were just waiting for the legal clock to run out. Under Illinois law, specifically 735 LCS 5/2-202, a process server has to make a good faith effort to deliver summons. My ex had been dodging the process server for 3 weeks regarding the $15,000 in back rent and damages she owed the landlord for the apartment she'd essentially trashed after I moved out. She thought if she stayed mobile, she was untouchable. She didn't realize her best friend knew exactly which influencer events she was crashing to stay relevant. "Let her up," I told the desk via the intercom. "I'll handle it." 2 minutes later, the elevator dinked. My ex burst into the suite, nearly knocking over a potted ficus. She didn't even look at the decor. She went straight for my desk. "You ruined me," she shrieked, slamming her hands down on the mahogany. "My LLC is dissolved. My Instagram is flagged for fraud. My bank account is frozen because of those unauthorized charges you reported. Do you have any idea what it's like to have a credit card declined at a grocery store? I imagine it's about as fun as finding out your partner of 3 years is using your money to fund dates with a real estate developer," I replied, leaning back. "That was for my brand," she yelled, her entitlement vibrating in the air. "I needed to network. You were supposed to be my partner. You were supposed to support my journey." "Your journey involved fraud and infidelity," her best friend interrupted, stepping out from behind the partition. "I saw the DMs. I saw the receipts. You even tried to put the developer's hotel stays on his credit card as business travel. Did you really think I wouldn't tell him?" My ex turned on her former best friend, her face contorting. You were supposed to be my sister. You stole my life. You're living in a high-rise while I'm sleeping on a couch in a studio apartment with 3 other girls." "I didn't steal anything," her best friend said calmly. "I just stopped helping you hide who you really are. And honestly, the couch sounds like a great place to start your next authentic vlog." "I'm suing you both," my ex screamed, reaching for a heavy glass paperweight on my desk. "I'm going to take every cent you have for emotional distress and—" "Actually," I said, pointing to the door behind her, "I think someone else wants to talk to you first." The heavy suite door opened. It wasn't more security. It was a man in a plain suit holding a manila envelope. "Ms. Ex-girlfriend?" the man asked. She froze, the paperweight still in her hand. "Who are you?" "You've been served," he said, stepping forward and dropping the envelope at her feet. "Summons for the civil suit regarding the breach of lease at address, plus a separate filing for the recovery of unauthorized funds. You have 30 days to respond." She looked at the floor like the envelope was a live grenade. "This isn't happening. This can't be happening." "It's very much happening," I said. "And because you decided to make this a business expense through your now-dissolved LLC, you've pierced your own corporate veil. Under the law, you're personally liable for the full amount. No more hiding behind a brand." The entitlement finally broke. She didn't have a witty comeback. She just had the cold, hard reality of a legal system that doesn't care about your follower count. Security finally arrived, led by 2 large men who didn't look impressed by her outfit. As they led her toward the elevator, she looked back at us, at her best friend's hand in mine, at the life she had tried to treat as a disposable safety net. "I'll hate you forever," she sobbed as the door started to close. "That's fine," I called out. "I'm sure you can find a way to monetize that." The silence that followed her departure was heavy, but it was the kind that finally let you breathe. My girlfriend, her former best friend, leaned against the edge of my desk, pulling out her phone. "There's one more thing you need to see. The update I didn't send you last night because I wanted you to focus on the hearing." She pulled out her phone and opened a saved cloud folder. It wasn't just DMs or bank statements this time. It was a series of screen-recorded FaceTime calls between my ex and that real estate developer from 4 months ago, well before the fluid relationship speech. In the video, my ex was laughing, showing off a designer watch I'd supposedly lost at the gym. She told the developer, "Don't worry about my boyfriend. He's basically my personal ATM with a pulse. I've got him so guilt-tripped about my mental health and career that he'll pay for the lease on the new place even after I move you in. I'll just tell him I need space to find myself, and he'll keep the utilities on out of habit." The level of calculated malice in her voice was chilling. She hadn't just cheated. She had mapped out a financial extraction plan. She viewed me as a recurring subscription service she could keep running while she upgraded her hardware. My girlfriend explained she'd recorded these when my ex used her iPad and forgot to sign out. Since they involved documented financial fraud against me, my lawyer already confirmed they were the smoking gun we needed. The resolution didn't feel like a movie ending. It was a series of emails from my lawyer confirming the landlord had successfully garnished her, very meager, remaining assets and that her influencer accounts were permanently blacklisted by the major talent agencies in the city. She tried one last entitled move a week later, sending a long, rambling email to my mother, claiming I had abused her financially and that her best friend had brainwashed me. My mother, who had seen the receipts and the court transcripts, simply replied, "The one usually doesn't end up in a courtroom. Please stop contacting our family." Now, I look at the woman standing next to me. She didn't just give me updates. She gave me a reality check when I was too blinded by loyalty to see I was being farmed for my paycheck. We aren't fluid. We aren't exploring our energies. We're just two people who value honesty, a solid lease agreement, and a partner who doesn't treat a relationship like a brand deal. My ex wanted to see other people. Well, she's seeing a lot of people now, mostly debt collectors and process servers.
And as for me,
I finally found the one. It just happened to be the person who was brave enough to tell me I was being an idiot. If you want to keep following my life's premium content without the hidden subscription fees, hit that subscribe button. I promise my updates have 100% less bot engagement than my ex's. Would you like me to create a follow-up story where the narrator and the best friend face a new challenge together?